so it's not in, in the frame. I don't like that polka dot blanket. Hey YouTube, Petey Twofinger here. Tales from the Tour Bus is a great show by Mike Judge. Anyway, I read this story and thought it was too good for me to not share it with you. This is coming from some guy calls himself Studio 1087, and this is found on the TDPRI Telecaster discussion page reissue. So it's titled Stage Illusion Cheap Trick Concert Last Night. And I'm reading this thread because I saw Cheap Trick and he had a bunch of checkered cabinets and they didn't have speakers in them. They had lamps, unbelievably bright lamps. There was a few speakers in there, but for the most part, and he would hit this foot switch or whatever it was, somehow these lamps would come on, and my recollection was they were like aircraft landing lights. They like burned into your eye because you're looking at the stage and all of a sudden these lights come on and you would shut your eyes because they were too bright. And then when you would open them back up, you couldn't see. There would be all these dots, rows of dots in your vision. It was just bizarre. And so I have always remembered that, and I'm looking into some explanation. Rick's a smart guy. He's a kind of got a cocky sense of humor. And I admire Rick Nielsen, but I don't know that much about that band. I just know I've never heard a bad Cheap Trick song. And we really enjoyed the concert, which featured, they had a different guitar for each member of the band for each song. So it was kind of, it was a guitar nerd's wet dream seeing that show. Anyway, this thread is off the first page, bottom of the thread, Studio 1087. Says, I saw Cheap Trick at a racetrack in Wausau, Wisconsin in 1982. Wausau, Wisconsin, Tom's Fish House. You can put a quarter into this machine, turn it, and you get little pellets to feed the carp that are in, or whatever. Probably wasn't carp. And I think you could eat those fish were there to be filleted and eaten. But Wausau, Wisconsin, I've been there. Now, Rick Nielsen did one of the coolest things I've ever seen and heard. The show was outside, and there was an idiot standing 20 feet away from my group, opening beer cans and throwing them over the crowd, getting beer in people's hair. The guy threw a beer can at the stage, and it bounced and hit one of Rick's guitars that was on a stand. Rick Nielsen stopped the band mid-song and walked off the stage. Rick came back on the stage after 10 minutes of people shouting and said this: "We sold 4,000 tickets today. 3,999 of you want to have fun and listen to music. One of you wants to throw beer cans. The band will come back under one condition. If one more beer can flies, I'm going to need the 3,999 of you to kick the living shit out of the one person who is throwing cans. Who agrees?" The crowd started screaming, and Rick pointed to the area that the crowd that the cans were flying from. The can thrower turned white as a sheet. I was 18 and thought it was amazing. Great show. This is the kind of stuff that I really love seeing on stage. I was at Lollapalooza here in Chicago when Ministry, and there was a unbelievable rainstorm, like a flash flood, and then it cleared up. And that was right when Ministry went on, and they ripped the lawn out. They literally ripped all of the sod out of the entire middle section, like where the lawn is at the venue, which is the World Music Theater. I know it's called the new Illuminati Bank Center of Entertainment or whatever they call it now, but it's the World. And it's kind of a lawn shaped like this, and there was just a giant oval of dirt with a little bit of sod around the side. And that was the year when, after that, the prices, all the concession prices went through the roof to pay for that. Now, what happened was I had went to the restroom and I came out and it looked like a plague of like flying bats. And Ministry's playing. They just went on. And it's it's like Psalm 69 tour of Ministry. Great album. George W. Bush Sr. sample, or George R. Bush Senior George Bush samples, not gonna do it, coming out of the PA, and this like really dark, like satanic borderline thrash music with a lot of delay and stuff. It was just really cool. Like the beginning of what's his name? It's Jorgensen. Like he was still on the heroin honeymoon. You know, he hadn't like fully pierced up his entire face yet, and they were throwing the sod in the air, and it looked like a cloud. It was a group of people just doing the same thing, throwing the chunks of sod up in the air, and it was like a black cloud floating above the. From a distance, that's what I saw. And when I got up there, I realized it wasn't bats. This wasn't a plague. It wasn't the end of the world. It was just a huge sod fight. And the sod started getting thrown under there's the like roof of the venue where the seats that people paid more money for, the front area seats are. The sod's getting thrown into there, and they had a jumbotron. He's up there, rah, 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 rah. And somebody they're chucking sod at him, and he's like, like he's having to like move out of the way because these pieces of sod are coming really close to his head. And he came out. He was throwing chicken bones and blood like it was a voodoo ritual, and then he just stopped the show, and everybody boos. And then he says, "Look it, we already got fucking paid. So if you guys want to act like a bunch of fucking kindergartners, we're just going to stand here for our set. How do you like that?" And the whole place did a mass fuck you, this chant. Like, it was like everyone was tuned in on the same wavelength, and that was like, I never saw, only because it was Lollapalooza would that happen when you have the majority of everyone in the audience like turn on the rock star that they had come to see, because it was people who had just gone to Lollapalooza, and a huge percentage of them didn't really know who Ministry was, didn't really care who Ministry was, and he was like a midday act. He wasn't one of the headliners. So when he turned on the crowd and called them kindergartners, what he didn't realize was there was just a percentage of people in the lawn that were throwing the sod around, you know. And there was a whole other huge percentage of people that had paid that were not throwing the sod. So it wasn't the best way to handle that. And I looked at it like this guy's all like Joe Satan. He's all smacked out, throwing his chicken bones around like it's Santa. What do they call it? Santa Sangre? That there's some kind of black magic.
I don't
Santa.
know those things.
Yeah, he's doing his little rituals and everything with his chicken bones and his blood, and then little sod fight. I mean, couldn't you like do your little chant or whatever, and the sod would like go the other way? I think I remember actually seeing that. I think I remember him. Yeah, he had like a bat power or something where he like did a little thing with his hand, and the devil, one of the demons, moved one of the flying pieces of sod away from him, but then he used up all of his demon powers. I don't know. In any event, that was one of those things that you only see at a rock concert. I'll give you another one real quick to make sure this video is 10 minutes. My wife and I have a good relationship, and like when I met her, I was aware that she had a bunch of Duran Duran posters on her wall. And when I was, she's smiling over there now. When I was coming up, that was one of those bands that I really, really did not care for. That Rio video was on MTV all the time, and I just really didn't. I really, 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 really do not like Duran Duran. And me and my buddies were kind of rebelling at this private school. If you've ever watched the Marilyn Manson thing on his life, that school that he went to was exactly the same thing that I went to, only my school only had 27 kids in the high school. You had to sign a contract that you wouldn't drink, dance, smoke, have caffeine, play cards, listen to rock music, or go to movies. There was a dress code, and they would spank you if you broke any of the rules. So this was very repressed, hypersexual school. The kids were all really, really perverted. But it was this Baptist church. So it was a very bizarre place to be, and I was pleading and pleading and pleading to get out of it, just like Brian Welsh, or whatever Marilyn Manson's real name is. Now, I knew all through our marriage, it's been good, It's been great. Who am I going to kid? I am so lucky to be married to this woman who's been my partner and my friend. And that's awesome. And if you know this channel, you know that's true. You see her up there playing bass with me. You guys know that she helps me. We're about to start building some pedals tonight, and she's going to be helping me. She's going to be handing me each part, hand testing it, and then I will solder them in place to the PCB board. So I ain't kidding about being partner. She's really cool. Anyway, I knew through all this coolness and how great I talk about her and everything, she's not perfect, because there's that whole Duran thing. Play your funky bass, John. I knew at one point in my life I would have to pay the fiddler, and it would come this moment where I would find myself sitting at a Duran concert. And sure enough, they came back out on the road. When was that we got to see them?
2006.
2006.
It was like the first big show at Sears Place in Hoffman Estates.
The Sears Arena in Hoffman Estates. It was the first big,
Yeah.
the FIG show. So Donna and I go, and I remember the last three songs, they turned the guitar up really loud, and there was like a delay, like the guitar sounded great. And it was actually really good. And like everyone like really got into it more because they turned the guitar up, which some of those songs wouldn't work with a lot of guitar, you know. And then there was that whole like, play a funky bass, John, and like she was like giddy at that moment, and I was just like, I couldn't have wanted to dissolve into a puddle of shame any harder than I could have. But the whole time we were there, we kept seeing these women who, we called them Rio. There's Rio. They were women who they were fans of the band way back then. Maybe they were like older than Donna was. You know, you say like 10 years older. And they were huge fans. Like they were like 21 when this stuff was coming out. So now they're a little bit older, and they really shouldn't be putting on like streetwalker costumes, like super, super, super short mini skirts with the nylons and the high heels, all this makeup, big hair and makeup, when they're like in their 70s and drinking. Like drinking. So we're sitting on a row, an aisle. It's like these stairs go up at a good angle, and I'm sitting on the end. And there's this one, like, what most people would say, like, oh, she was hot, just because she looked like a high-end prostitute. She was skinny and tall, and she was showing everything she got, like fluorescent dress, floral, like, looked like one of the girls in the video, but 70 years old. Okay? And she kept going the entire night. She was walking up the stairs with these heels, and she could barely do it. So she's throwing her body all over the place, making this huge scene. And then she would come back with a couple of giant beers. And then we would be like, okay. And then all of a sudden, here she would come again, because she drank the beer. So she is, the entire night, we've seen her like 16 times pass us. There's Rio, there's Rio, there's Rio. There she goes again. Then finally she comes back. She's got 4 beers in a carton thing and a super nacho, which is a little boat with some stale nacho chips and a little bit of that plastic cheese on it with some jalapenos for good luck. And she comes walking down with this, and she passes me, and my wife elbows me and says, I don't think the super nacho is going to do the trick. Meaning she needed to consume a real meal with a lot of protein, cheese, and meat to try to reduce her alcohol stupor that she was in, because she was wasted. I remember the round before, she came with a guy who was dressed up like Don Johnson. You remember? She was with a guy, and he had like a white suit with no, like, what do you call that, where there's no collar on it? This is a douchebag. Anyway, she comes back down. She's got the 4 beers and mind you, we're like at the top of this unbelievably long row of stairs. And she had been spilling beer every time. And so she's coming down, and her little spike, you know where this is going, right? That spike, 9-inch spike heel comes down on one of those triple puddles that she spilled, and her legs go, one leg goes whoop that way, one leg goes whoop that way, and she goes bam, bam, bam. She starts butt bouncing down the entire flight of the Sears Arena. The Super Nacho goes that way. Two giant 64-ounce jumbo beers go to that side of the crowd. 2 giant jumbo 64-ounce beers go to that side of the crowd. It's just like a firework went off, and then she's in the middle of this thing. Bam, 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 bam. Just hammering her ass down into these beer-soaked stairs. And then, like nothing happened at the bottom after literally like 24 or, 64, however many of these stairs she butt bounced down. She gets up and brushes it off like nothing happens and starts doing her little strut, walking back. And that was it. So again, as I always say, if you're at that moment where you're struggling, like, do I go to this show that I don't really want to go to, or do I stay home? Do I grin and bear it and go, or am I going to miss out on this rock show? And you never want to miss out, because you're always going to see something that's a good story. And you'll never know. It might be the story of a lifetime that you see. Because if you pay attention, I'm not talking about going there and not watching the band, just watching the people, because I don't. I go for the performance. But something like Duran Duran, I didn't watch the band the whole night. I've got to be honest. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you around soon. That was a great Rick Nielsen story, wasn't it? Peace. Let's remember, don't tolerate people throwing beer, alcohol. I mean, you don't, it's just one of those things. Do you want to like get into a fight with them? But we shouldn't, as a society, we shouldn't tolerate that type of behavior. Just because it's a live event doesn't mean you get to throw alcohol all over the place. That's really lame. Really, really lame. I've seen that in King Gizzard in the Lizard Wizard live videos when they play in Australia in those bars. The people know that the camera's rolling. So, hey, mate, I'm going to go get myself some Fosters. That's not a lager. And, throw it all over the place. So that's another reason I won't go see that band live. All right, their loss. Peace.